Part three, death and dementia lessons learned. Hopefully, you guys learned a thing or two from what I've said already. But when I left off, Grandma and Grandpa had died, and well, I think Grandma was still in the home, but she eventually died after 6 or 8 years, like I said, not really knowing anyone. And Mom had to take care of all that. What I probably should have learned at the time was more about wills and more about trusts and those things. And I didn't. And I was in a higher risk career. And they talked about life insurance and wills and trust and all those things too. And I did get life insurance. They kind of pushed that in the career that I was in. And but I really didn't pay much attention to the will part or the trust part because early on I was single and I didn't have any kids when I started my career at 24 ish, and with no kids, being single, it was just me to worry about, and I assumed that mom and dad would just get everything if something happened to me. And so when I was about 29 years old, I suffered a pretty serious injury at work, and ultimately they had to schedule an extensive back surgery for me. Because of the length of the surgery, it ended up being like an over 14 hours of a surgery. But because of the length being put under, the doctors told me that I should have my affairs in order because there's a chance that I just won't wake up. And at the time, I just didn't really think about it because like, oh yeah, mom and dad get everything and whatever. Let's just move on with it. I had an attorney at the time for workers' comp, and he knew that the man I called dad is technically my stepfather. And he asked me if I knew my biological father, and I told him, kind of like I mentioned before, no. He walked out when I was 4. I don't know, didn't know him, and had no desire to know him. From what I did understand, he was a bit of a turd. And so the lawyer told me, well, just so you know, if you do die during the surgery and he sees it in the obituaries and you don't have a will, he could claim 50% of your stuff. And so that's the point where I said, nah, I need to call another lawyer. So I got called lawyer to get a will in, and that's one of the things that I didn't really understand at the time. It's not just about who you want to take care of your affairs or who you want to leave your things to. It can be about who you don't want to take care of you and who you don't want to leave a freaking nickel to. And that's the reason I did it. And talking to a lot of friends and family members and people out there that are kind of my generation going through a lot of similar things, I think most families are going to kind of have one turd in the family who is going to be, it may or may not be a surprise, but when it comes down to taking charge of estates and money and getting money or getting property, some people, their true colors just come out, and it's ridiculous how greedy and selfish and shitty some people that you thought you knew could be. And so, like I said, didn't know my biological father, but that's the reason I got the will, is to make sure that he got absolutely nothing, and mom and dad actually got everything if I died. As you can see, I didn't die, and so that worked out. But it was afterward when I ended up buying a home that the lawyer recommended I go to a trust. As for the difference between a trust and a will and all those different things, and then you go into power of attorney and healthcare power of attorney, that takes a lawyer to explain it. And once again, I'm not an expert. The way I understand it at this point is a will is kind of what you want done, but your property is still going to go through probate, which means it's more of a pain in the ass, and the government's going to get a chunk. A trust is supposedly a smoother transition, that if you're the trustee and you die, then the next trustee takes over. But check with a lawyer because I really don't know all the details, but I do have a trust now. Uh, I mentioned before that our older brother died in 2020, and so he he and I were, I'll say we were close. We were because we got along great. And he was an absolutely great guy. Honestly, I can't think of anyone throughout my life that didn't like him. That anyone that I ever met. You know, I can't walk into a room without pissing two people off. But honestly, everyone liked him. And but as we grew older, we didn't have a whole lot in common, and so kind of sadly enough, we only talked a couple times a year. But when we did, they were great conversations, and we got along really well. And I talked to him about his health before. So the couple times a year, our older brother and I talked, and my brother, who's helping with this video, was about the same way with him. It was usually birthdays and Christmas, and maybe a little bit in between for some kind of scheduling, but not a whole lot. But they were great conversations when we did have them. So didn't know a whole lot about his personal life. He loved his job, and he worked for the news. And so my understanding was that was pretty much his life. And we didn't hang out much at all, like I said, except holidays and birthdays and things like that. And he was pretty private about his health. We knew that he had health issues from his 40s. In his early 40s, he had a heart attack. And like I said, he died around the COVID time. It wasn't COVID, it was his heart. And I know now you're not supposed to do what the fat shaming and you're not supposed to talk about people's health and all these politically correct freaking nonsense things. But he was a good man, and he died because he didn't take care of himself. He ate fast food pretty much every day. He did work a lot, and he didn't work out. He never worked out, zero exercise at all. And you can't keep doing that. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but if you eat shitty food all the time and you never exercise, you're going to freaking die earlier than you would if you would eat a little bit better and do some kind of workout. If you look at me, I'm no stranger to Reese's peanut butter cups or ice cream, but I put some freaking effort in. And I'm not doing this to insult, my older brother or anything like that too, because he did live the life the way he wanted to, but it's sad for the rest of us, because even his doctor said that had he just changed his ways a year or two before, he'd probably still be alive today. So in 2020, when I got a call from him, and it wasn't my birthday and it wasn't Christmas, I kind of knew something was up, and he told me that he was in the hospital, and he was about to have a quadruple bypass surgery, and the surgeon wanted to talk to me as next of kin, and he really didn't want our folks to know at that point. And so I got on the phone with the surgeon, and the surgeon told me that, hey, people your brother's age don't come in here with hearts like this. He said that he has to do the surgery because his arteries were so blocked, but he can't do the surgery because his heart is so unhealthy. And the option basically was that you got to give it a try. And he even told me straight up that I think he has a very slim chance of surviving this surgery. And so after that, I talked to my brother, who was very calm, and he knew everything, and he knew what got him there too. And for the first time, we had kind of serious talks. Like I said, after my injury and surgery, Mom and Dad and I talked pretty freely about what our wishes were in case something happened to me. But our older brother and I never really talked about that. So we did that day because we knew he might not be there the next day. And the only thing I could really think of, like I said, it was great conversation for a couple hours. I did ask for his email address and his password and his social security number. And that's kind of as far as we got with the conversation. He did tell me who who he wanted me to notify that he was sick, but not tell them how serious it was. And then he told me who he wanted me to notify if he died. And so I had a little bit of his information, not nearly enough, looking back. He did make it through that surgery. However, he ended up getting an infection a couple weeks later in the surgery area, and they went to take the infection out, and he died. And so that was a big turning point for Mom and Dad. Dad was getting a little forgetful in his age about then. Mom was doing okay, for being an older woman. But they were both independent, but they both made their own decisions and everything like that too. And then when the stress of losing a child hit, the downward spiral was ridiculously fast. And so I said that I would handle all of his affairs as much as I could. And my other brother, the one helping with his videos, said the same thing. So we split the responsibilities so Mom and Dad could just mourn. And once again, the only information I really had at the time, I had his email password and his social security number. And I think the hospital turned over his wallet with his driver's license. So I did have a little more information. So I went into dealing with his estate not really knowing what I should have. And one of the points being that there's got to be someone that you trust, or the people who are going to take care of you, or at least deal with your estate when you're gone. And you have to give them some way to get to this information, or it's going to be a gigantic, ginormous pain in the ass for them to try to figure everything out, which is what we went through. And so after he died, we went back to the house. Like I said, he moved into the house where my grandparents had lived. And I hadn't been there for 20 years. And we wanted to do, as I mentioned before, take out what you can't replace. And once again, contact your local police department. Some police departments have like patrol checks and things like that they'll do. If you just call them and say, hey, so-and-so died, the house is vacant, can you watch out for it? Some don't have the time to do it, and some don't offer the service at all. But it doesn't hurt to check with them. Have a family member you trust stay there, something like that, because these crooks will look at the obituaries and they'll find out, and they'll go there because they know it's a vacant house, and you're going to end up losing a whole lot of things. We went there. We didn't have anyone staying there. We ended up getting a ring alarm so I could look at my phone if anything did happen and call the police. And we took out what we didn't want to do without. Some of the things that meant a lot to our brother and meant a lot to us, we took out. But the house had been in the family since 1959. It was a lot of stuff. And my brother, our older brother, kept, Christmas cards and birthday cards, and he kept all that stuff to go through. He also kept, kind of like a lot of people, our generation, because we grew up not really knowing the whole digital world too well, we kept paper copies of everything. And he had freaking everything. Everything, stacks and stacks and stacks of paper and records and all sorts of things like that. But don't want to make these too long once again. For this one, learn what you can about the people you're going to have to take care of, and pass it on to people who are going to have to take care of you. At least let them know, if you don't want to give them your social security number, your driver's license number now, let them know where they can access it if something does happen to you. And another big one for this video is if someone does die in the family, secure the house somehow. Call the police department, see if they can help. Take out the things that you just are too valuable emotionally to lose, or cash or anything like that too, because someone's going to be watching and someone's going to break in. I'll go into more of what we had to deal with in the aftermath of our older brother's death in the next video, and I'll probably take a couple of videos to handle that. But till then, God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.